This will be for the con exercise, factor polynomials, common factor. Factor the polynomial by its greatest common monomial factor. Okay, so this monomial, it just means one term. Okay, and it can be a constant multiplied by a variable with an exponent. Okay, so it could be something like 4m to the third. Okay, that's just one term. It's not added or subtracted to anything. So that is a monomial. So that is the type of number or factor that we're factoring out of this equation. All right, anyhow, what you want to do for the constant terms, the coefficients, I should say, the coefficient is the number in front of the variable. You want to find the greatest common factor. So you want to find the greatest common factor for the coefficient, and for the variable or the letter, you want to take the one, you want to factor the one with the smallest exponent. Okay, so there's basically two steps. For the coefficient or the number in front of the variable, you need the greatest common factor to factor that out. And for the variable, you want to take the one with the smallest exponent. All right, so the factors for 12, you want to write the numbers that you could, that 12 would divide evenly by. So you can do 12 divided by 12 with no remainder, divided by 6, divided by 4, 3, and 2. Okay, if you take 12 and divide by any of these numbers, you will get a remainder of 0. So that's the idea. And for 30, you start with 30, and there's a 15, and 10, and 6, and 5, and 3. All right. You can include one. You don't need to include 1 because we're not going to factor out a 1. So the greatest common factor between 12 and 30 is 6. All right. So 6 is the first number or term we're going to factor out. And between the k's, we have k to the third and k to the fourth. The one with the smaller exponent is k to the third. Okay, and now we just divide. 12 divided by 6 is 2. K to the third divided by k to the third is just 1. So you can write 2 times 1, but that's just 2. So you don't need to write the 1. Negative 30 divided by 6 is negative 5. And k to the fourth divided by k to the third is just k. All right. So I'll write it as a fraction just so you can see it better. Negative 30 k to the fourth divided by 6k to the third. Okay, negative 30 divided by 6 is negative 5. And for the k's, you just subtract the exponents going down. 4 minus 3 is 1. But when the exponent is 1, you don't need to write it. So this is just negative 5k. And you enter this answer in the box. All right, so 6k to the third. Let's see. So I'll type 6k. All right, and the exponent button is this one right here, to the third. Hit the right arrow key, type parentheses, and then 2 minus 5k. 2 minus 5k. All right, the rectangle below has this area here. It's written inside the rectangle. The width is equal to the greatest common monomial factor of those two numbers. What is the length and width of the rectangle? All right, so the point of this is basically to do the area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle is length times width. Okay, so we need to find the length and the width, and when you multiply those terms should equal the area, which is written inside the rectangle. Now they said the length, or no, they said the width is the greatest common factor of these two terms, which represent the area. All right, so we need to find the greatest common factor between 70 and 30. Most of you can see it already. Okay, but I'll write them out anyway. I'll start with 70 and 35. You know what? It's actually easier if you did what times what. So we can do 70 times 1 and 35 times 2 and 7 times 10. All right, and I think that's it. And for the 30, we could do 30 times 1. We could do 5 times 6. We can do 10 times 3. Okay, but you want to find the greatest one that both of these have in common. So clearly that is 10. All right, so we're going to factor out a 10. And then you want the one variable with the smallest exponent. Here's y to the 8th. Here's y to the 6th. The smallest is y to the 6th. Okay, 70 divided by 10 is 7. Y to the 8th divided by y to the 6th is y squared. 30 divided by 10 is 3, positive 3. And y to the 6th divided by y to the 6th is just 1. So that's it. They said the width was the greatest common monomial factor. Okay, so the width, let me see here. The width is going to be this term right here, and the length is going to be this term. Okay, so for the width, I'm going to type 10y, and it's to the 6th. So use that exponent to the 6th. Click outside and click in the next box. And you don't have to type the parentheses. You can just type 7y squared, 7y exponent button squared. Hit the right arrow key and then do plus 3. All right, so when you find, when you factor out the greatest common monomial factor, you take each of these terms and divide each one by this number here that you factored out. All right, factor by the greatest common monomial factor. Okay, so we want to find the greatest common factor of 9 and 27. Okay, some of you can do this part in your head. Really, you can see they're both divisible by 9. But if we wrote out the factors for 9, that's 9 times 1 and 3 times 3. For 27, that's going to be 27 times 1. It's going to be 9 times 3. Okay, so the greatest factor, common factor between 9 and 27 is clearly the 9. All right, so we factor out a 9. And the smallest exponent on the variable, this is m to the 3rd, this is m to the 1st. All right, so m to the 1st, or just m, is the smallest exponent. 9 divided by 9 is 1. M to the 3rd divided by m is m squared. Negative 27 divided by 9 is negative 3. M divided by m is just 1. So that's it. So type 9m, parentheses, and then type m, and you want the one with the exponent, squared. Click right arrow key, minus 3, and it closes the parentheses for you. All right, last one. The rectangle has this area. Okay, you can see it's written inside the rectangle. And the width is equal to the greatest common monomial factor of those numbers that are written inside the rectangle. Okay, so we need to factor out the greatest common factor and make that the width and divide to get the length. Okay, so between 6, 20, and 14, you don't always have to write this out. I'm just doing this to show you. Okay, the factors for 6, we have 6 times 1 and 2 times 3. For 20, we have 20 times 1, 10 times 2, 4 times 5, and I think that's it. And for 14, we have 14 times 1 and 7 times 2. Okay, it has to be common to all 3. So the greatest one that's common to all 3 is the 2. All right. So start by factoring out a 2. And then choose the variable with the lowest exponent. We have n to the 4th, n to the 3rd, and n squared. So n squared, the 2 is the smallest exponent. 6 divided by 2 is 3. N to the 4th divided by n squared is n squared. 20 divided by 2 is positive 10. N to the 3rd divided by n squared is n to the 1st, or just n. 14 divided by 2 is 7. And n squared divided by n squared is just 1. Okay, so they said the width was the greatest common monomial factor. So this part right here is going to be the length. All right, click in the box for the width. You type 2n and click the exponent button, squared. All right, 2n squared. All right, so this is the length. This is the width, and for the length, we're going to type. Let's see if I can get this here. We're going to type 3n squared. So 3n. Click the exponent button, squared, right arrow key, plus 10n, plus 7. All right, so I typed exactly what I got there. And by the way, I should have mentioned this before. If you want to check your answer before you click this button here, just distribute. 2 times 3 is 6. N squared times n squared is n to the 4th. 2 times 10 is 20. N squared times n is n to the 3rd. And 2 times 7 is 14. And n squared times 1 is n squared. So if you want to check before hitting this, just distribute.